Hello everyone, it is Mortgage Wise with Mike Wise at Capstone Direct Mortgage, and today we have Craig Peterson from Aviara Real Estate. Welcome.
Hello, welcome.
Awesome.
Glad to be here.
Yes, good. So Craig has been doing real estate for about 9 years now, and so he's got some experience that he'll go over with us, and today we're going to talk about kind of the real estate purchase from a real estate agent's perspective and what they're looking for. So first thing I wanted to go over is the pre-approval letter. When do you get that from the lender? Why do you want it? What's the reason for that pre-approval letter?
We get it as soon as possible.
Okay.
We want to have it in hand. We want to, before we even start sharing properties with people and get their hopes up, we want to know what they qualify for.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, we like to get that ahead of time so that we know, and the pre-approval is a key, because then we know it's not just like they went online with Rocket Mortgage and clicked a button and said, hey, I wonder if I made X amount, what would I qualify for?
Exactly.
It actually means something when you've put it before an underwriter and we actually can rely on the information.
Perfect, yeah, because with somebody like a Rocket Mortgage, it's you entering in your information online and garbage in, garbage out. It might not be an actual pre-approval.
And a lot of other lenders as well. I mean, they'll get a call from somebody and, okay, well, give me some information. They're just trying to get their foot in the door to get the business.
Yeah, and
but that doesn't help us if it's not true.
Yeah, and in fact, at Capstone Direct, what we do is we give it to the underwriter. We're a direct lender, and so we give it to the underwriter that is actually going to review the file. And it actually may take a little bit longer to get that pre-approval because we want to make sure that they're 100% pre-approved up front and ready to go. So one of the things that you mentioned was you get it up front. You don't want to disappoint the buyers. You don't want to go show them properties. I've said in my videos before that, like, if you go out and shop for $1 million house and you're like, oh, I love this house, I want to buy it, you go out with the agent, you look at it, you waste everybody's time, and then you go get that pre-approval letter, and it's like,
And then I get to call back and say, so I've got some condos that we should look at.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't want to get the buyers kind of hopes up to go find, or you to waste your time to go out and look for properties that they can't buy.
That's right.
When you've searched for houses with your buyers, you've gone to 15 houses, and now they find the one that they actually want to buy.
Right.
What's the process for them? What do you need from them in order to actually make that offer?
Well, it kind of goes back to the pre-approval letter. What I like to do is sit down. I've got a meeting that I have with every buyer before we go out and start looking at properties.
Okay.
I go through the whole process with them, what to expect. I find out information from them to see what they're looking for. And part of what I ask them to do for some homework before we start going out and really looking in earnest is you got to talk to Mike, you got to get your pre-approval.
Yeah.
You've got to get me proof of funds so that I can, and I tell them if it's one of my listings, no offer is really complete, even though you can check a box or say it's going to be in within 3 days. You got to vet people beforehand. So if we want to put our best foot forward, especially in a competitive market with very little inventory, then we need to come with a complete package, which includes our offer, the pre-approval letter, and the proof of funds, and all of the details that need to go into that.
When let's dig a little bit deeper on the proof of funds. What does that mean?
It means that we can submit an offer for whatever amount, but we have to show that we can get it done. So it's really a combination, if there's a loan, of your letter, plus the proof of funds, a PDF of bank accounts. It can be, a lot of things. It can be a retirement account that they can draw against. It can be all kinds of things.
Something to show that they actually have the money for the down payment and closing costs.
Our offer says we offer $1 million. Where's it going to come from? The agent on the other side and the people on the other side who are selling, they have to be able to say, offer's great, and that looks good, or $1 million, but you sent me nothing to show that you have the money. You sent me a pre-approval that says you've got an 80% loan.
$800,000.
Where's the 20%?
Yeah, exactly.
We've got to show that up front.
Yeah. Otherwise, if there's 10 offers on the property, then the listing agent is just going to put this one aside.
I would.
Yeah.
Unless they can show me that it's legitimate.
Yep, exactly. So, okay, so now you have an accepted offer. So you submit all that, you submit all that information to the listing agent.
Right.
They come back and they say, congratulations, Craig, your guy bought the property. You have an accepted offer.
And it's always that easy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure. So there's a lot of negotiation going back and forth.
Right.
But at that point in time, you guys, we open escrow is what you guys say, right?
Right.
What does open escrow mean?
Well, it's a broad term the way we use it, but really what it means is we've got a deal.
Okay.
So we've made the offer, they've accepted your offer as a buyer.
Yeah.
What I do at that point is I immediately, and this is under that umbrella of opening escrow, let's say it's on a Saturday and we get an offer accepted. Well, I immediately will send the agreement to the lender because I want you to be able to get a jump on things, especially because a lot of times we're reducing some contingency periods. You're accommodating us, but we want to make sure that we're getting information to you.
Yep.
So we don't wait till Monday when we open escrow, and by the time escrow processes everything and it's afternoon, and now on Monday afternoon when you're wrapping up your day, you're getting something saying, hey, you got to get an appraisal out in 10 days or something.
So that we know.
Under that umbrella for me is we get the lender the information, we get everything all packaged together, send it off to escrow, and start sending emails to the other side, to the seller's agent, their transaction coordinator, introducing everybody, letting them know timelines, what we've already done. And so that way when people come in on a Monday morning, or if it's a weeknight, they come in the next morning, it's all there ready for them. And that means that escrow, that uninterested third party, the clearinghouse for both sides, they've got everything that they need to open escrow. That clock starts counting, and we're moving forward toward the close of escrow.
Awesome. So there's a lot of people involved in the transaction, and so there's transaction coordinators, there's listing agents, selling agents, appraisers, escrow we talked about, title, lenders. So all those people, as a real estate agent, you're kind of like getting everybody together and saying, all right, let's go.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what does the buyer, what are some of the things that they have to do? So for instance, like what's earnest money deposit or a good faith estimate? And how does that play into everything?
Good. So the earnest money deposit is going to be their initial deposit that they have to put in. And when I say put in, it's put into escrow. It's held by that uninterested third party.
Escrow,
And so that deposit has to go within 3 days. I always tell my folks, as soon as you get those wire instructions, then we're moving on that, because we want to show good faith that we're doing everything on our part to move forward and to meet our deadlines. And we're going to do everything along the way to meet those deadlines and even exceed them if we can.
Why is that important?
I think
who is that important to?
I think it's important to everybody. It comes down to good faith, things in the contract that say we're all going to work in good faith toward the close of escrow, with some other caveats along the way. But I think it points to professionalism and intent. So from a professional standpoint, I want the agent, I want the lender, I want the escrow, I want the sellers, buyers, whoever's on the other side. I want them to see that we in good faith are constantly making steps forward. And obviously, if we have to have questions answered along the way that pause that a little bit, we're communicating. And I think communication is the key. So it's important to everybody in different ways. Like I said, it's important to you to be communicated with as a lender early on, because you want to get a jump on things.
And get everything
It's
going.
important to the other agent, because the more I can communicate to the other agent, the more they can communicate to their client. And the more each side is communicating to their clients, the better understanding we have, and the better chance we have, if we do run into a hiccup along the way, of coming together and coming to a solution so that we can reach that ultimate goal of the close of escrow.
I love it. So that is a great way. It's a positive way of actually explaining the earnest money deposit and kind of moving forward.
It's kind of the beginning of the whole process.
So borrowers they always come to me and say, you know, what is the earnest money deposit? You know, can I lose that money? And like, what would be the potential for me to lose a $20,000 because I put it into escrow?
Well, what I always tell my clients is your deposit, your earnest money deposit, is protected to a degree.
Yeah.
It's protected by the contingencies that are agreed upon in the contract.
Okay.
The major contingencies are for the physical inspections, for the appraisal and the loan.
Yep.
There's some other small ones in there as well.
Yep.
And so the communication, again, is really key with the client. And until those contingencies have been removed, their earnest money deposit is protected. Meaning, if one side or the other decided to cancel,
yep,
they still, based upon those contingencies,
right,
have the right to get that money back.
Perfect.
So we just have to communicate with them. And again, we go through those things in that initial meeting, and then I'm reminding my clients of that the whole way through.
Yeah. In my 30 years of doing this as a lender, and not to my fault, I've seen one person lose their earnest money deposit.
Yeah.
So it is your money is safe with especially an experienced agent that Craig is communicating along the way with everybody to kind of tell you what the status is on the transaction. So
right, that's right.
That's kind of next on my list were those contingencies.
Sure.
So let's dig a little bit deeper into those contingencies. And the three major ones you talked about, which is the inspection, the appraisal, and the loan contingencies. Right? And so define what a contingency is.
A contingency is an agreed to clause in the contract that gives a certain time period for something to be accomplished.
Yeah.
And it's with the intent that at the end of that time period, whatever it is you have to do is going to be accomplished, so that you can make a decision that you're either going to remove that contingency and move forward,
yeah, or
you're going to cancel, yeah, or ask for an extension for some reason.
So let's talk about the physical inspection, right? And so you take your buyers into this property, they walk around, they look at it, and they say, oh, this is the home of my dreams, I love it, blah, blah, all that stuff, right? And they're like, that's 20 minutes to a half hour that they're looking at this property,
exactly,
right?
Maybe with other people walking around at the open house.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then you get the accepted offer and the physical inspection, which, by the way, costs. They got to write a check.
They
for
do.
that.
That's one of the expenses that they have.
Yeah.
One of the things we go through in that initial meeting.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So the inspector comes to the property. You organize that as the agent and say, all right, physical inspector, I want you to go take a look at the whole property, electrical. What else do they look at?
Well, they look at all you have the right as a buyer to do non-invasive inspections. So you can't, without permission, you can't put holes in walls and tear up the roof or anything. Yeah. But the home inspector is going to go in, they're going to turn on all of the heat, the air conditioning, all of the appliances, they're going to run all the faucets, they're going to make sure the windows open and close, they're going to look for any evidence of leaks, of deterioration. They're really being hired to find problems with the house.
Yep.
And what's important for buyers and sellers to know is there's not a house out there, including a brand new build, that an inspector won't find something wrong with.
Right,
in
exactly.
fact, I think that people should get a home inspection even on a brand new build.
Yeah.
I know people who found some major electrical issues and plumbing issues even on that.
Funny.
So they go in and they look for those things. It's important that we order that early on, because if, let's say we've got a 14-day contingency because we shortened it a little from 17 for the physical
inspection, yeah.
The general home inspection is going to shed light on things that the normal person isn't going to see. We're not crawling in the attic.
Yeah.
We're not turning on all the appliances. We're not supposed to anyway. When we're going through an open house and we're going to cook some mac and cheese.
Yeah.
We're gonna,
see if the
microwave's working. They do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so if you do uncover something, then you want to have time so that you could call out. Let's say they find a problem with the roof or plumbing. or they run all the water at the same time and it all starts to back up, so we may need to have a plumber come out and scope the main sewer line.
Right.
So we want to leave enough time so in good faith we can try and keep on schedule, but still get everything done so that now we won't know everything about the house.
Yeah.
But we'll know enough so that the buyer feels comfortable after they ask for some repairs or a credit based on what they find. They feel comfortable with making that decision of, is this still the house for us in the condition it's in at the price we offer?
Yeah.
Or do we need to adjust that? And based on the response, are we going to move forward, or are we going to cancel and use that contingency to get our deposit back?
So that's the contingency period for the physical inspection. And
right.
You can basically say, I'm out of here, I don't like what I see, or you're going to move forward and there may be negotiations that go back and forth to fix things or credits or so forth. Right.
Exactly.
Perfect.
And in good faith, we're trying to do that within the time period that we put into the offer and they accepted.
And just kind of this isn't part of the physical inspection, but the seller by this time should have given you disclosures on what they know or they fixed on the property, or they know defects on the property.
Absolutely.
As well.
In fact, when we set that home inspection, we always make a call to the other agent and let them know. Obviously, we have to coordinate. Ask that they get us those disclosures before the physical inspection, so that we can specifically look for things that they say have been a problem or they've been recently repaired or something.
And you can tell the inspector to look at those. And,
absolutely.
You know, were they fixed? Or were they not fixed? Were they fixed right? All those types of things. So interesting. Okay. So the second thing is the appraisal, and I'll just briefly touch on that. But that is, we order an appraisal as the lender. We want to know that the value of the property is actually what they're buying it for, right? So the appraiser goes out there. We hire a uninterested third party as an appraiser to go out and look at the property. They comp it out to the neighborhood. They make sure the value is there. And generally speaking, that's 10 to 17 days as well. Yeah,
it's kind of set in the contract as 17. Sometimes we'll reduce that, but one of the things that's important is we always, whether it's the lender for our buyer or we're contacting a lender as the seller, we never want to reduce a contingency beyond what they think they can perform.
Right, exactly.
So we're always talking beforehand.
Super important, yeah. So, and then the last one is the loan contingency. So, as the lender, we give the pre-approval for the loan, and so you go into escrow, and then we actually go through the process of re-underwriting that file. How important, is that contingency, and what's generally the time frame for the loan approval?
Yeah, in the new contract, it used to be 21 days. In the new contract, it's written as 17 days unless you alter it.
Okay.
I don't know why they shortened it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Make your life a little more interesting.
Exactly, right.
But you can always write in different amounts of time, depending, and that's why the communication with the lender is important. Because you might say, you know what, they're pre-underwritten, but we've got to wait for another pay stub, which is not going to be within 17 days. Or we've got to,
proof of funds or something.
Certain conditions that have to be met.
Yep.
So this one is really important and really interesting, because it's not unusual to reduce the contingency to try and sweeten your deal, because as soon as all contingencies are removed, that's when the sellers know, I've really got a deal. My house is going to sell.
So the sellers have a deal, and at that point in time, if the buyers have removed the inspection, the appraisal, and the loan contingencies.
And usually what happens with the loan is that there are other little contingencies all over the place, but usually what's happening with the loan is you remove the other two big ones, and that is normally all contingencies without exception. But normally what happens is with the loan, it's not unusual that the lender will say, well, we still have a couple of conditions, but everything looks great. So that's where that initial meeting with the buyers, we explained to them, we'll probably hit a time where you're not going to have an absolute 100%, nothing could happen, But we're going to say, yeah, everything looks good. We may not have what you call clear to close, but the conditions are minor. It's waiting for a pay stub. So, okay, we feel comfortable as the lender with you moving forward, and we've got to communicate it properly to our clients.
So that's you as the agent, me as the lender, and the buyers actually communicated and saying, yes, let's, we're good to go. Let's move forward.
There's a lot of that triangle going on where, and that's why it's important to have a good relationship with a lender. Because I can give information, but I'm not a lender. So many times what I want to do is say, listen, I think it's happening like this. What I want you to do is give Mike a call and confirm. Or, even with, I can talk to you and you can say, okay, there's a couple contingencies, but I think we're looking pretty good. And I'll say, well, Mike, would you mind calling and having that conversation with them directly as the lender? And then I'll
give them comfort.
Then I'll talk and we'll say, okay, what do you think? Then usually they'll say, well, we're comfortable with it.
That to me is that last bit of time when you remove the loan contingencies to when you actually fund the loan. There's some risk in there.
There's a little bit.
So
there's a little leap of faith that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So you may lose your job.
Could happen.
And we've had that before. We've called to do a verification of employment at funding, and nope, they don't work here anymore.
That's right.
And so so those are interesting kind of conversations.
Or they get excited, and no matter how many times we tell them not to buy something, they go out and buy their dream car.
Yeah, exactly. They go buy a Ferrari
after you close escrow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it is these contingency periods are very important.
They are.
And you need to take them seriously when you go through them. So there are in today's market is a very competitive market. And so you know this as well as I do. You talked about shortening the contingency periods. And some of them were doing no loan contingencies or no appraisal contingencies. And some people are even doing no inspection contingencies. And so it gets
not recommended, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. It gets really risky. But why would you write an offer with like 10-day loan approval contingency or a 10-day appraisal contingency?
Well, in short, we want to, within reason, we want to put our best foot forward. When I say we, my buyers and I. And you. All of us together as a team.
I want the deal, so I want to get it done, right?
So we want our deal to be sweetened in any way that we can that's reasonable and not silly. And we're not going to, unless it was something they're going to buy just to tear down.
Yeah, exactly.
But so what we do is we try and sweeten it as best we can. And because, I'll back up a little bit. What I tell my sellers is you are in complete control of everything until you choose not to be. And they'll look at me and say, well, you can raise your price, you can lower your price. You can pull it off the market, you can tell me you don't want to sell. You're in absolute complete control.
Yeah, I work for you.
You could get 20 offers and you could just say no to all of them. But as soon as you accept an offer, you relinquish some of that control, probably a majority of that control. But you don't release that or relinquish that without some compensation, and that compensation is we now have a contract that both parties agreed to, and the terms were favorable enough to you as the seller that you agreed to relinquish that control.
Interesting.
So the reason I go back to say that is because in my mind what happens is this: the seller relinquishes a majority of the control to the buyers, because if they walk through and remove all their contingencies and do everything, they can't get out of the deal without penalties.
Some type of penalty.
And maybe sometimes that penalty is you got to sell your house because you agreed to. So what happens is the buyers want to know, how long do I have to relinquish that control? And that's what's governed by the contingencies. As soon as all of those contingencies are removed, then some of that control is relinquished by the buyers. And now it evens out where, based on this contract that everybody's agreed to, we're all going to take a deep breath and we're going to move together toward the close of escrow. So it's like this little pendulum that swings back and forth in the deal.
from a seller's perspective, they want shorter contingencies for the buyer, right?
Because that's when they know
they have a deal.
They're more guaranteed that this is going to close and now I can move on to whatever I'm moving on to.
And vice versa, they also might know, like, they don't have a deal at that point in time, and so
exactly,
we want to take the property, like, out of the buyer's control now, and we want to take back control.
Put it back. We want to go back to a backup offer, put it back on the market,
exactly.
So it's not floating in limbo there for too long.
Yeah. All right. So let's finish up with, not to give any trade secrets or how you do things, but negotiations back and forth. We talked about them a little bit, but the inspection comes back and there's you know, stuff that needs to be fixed, maybe health and safety issues, all that type of stuff, right? And so what are, like, along the way, at some point in time, there's give and take and pull. So talk to me a little bit about some of that stuff.
Yeah, so one of the important things is to try and help people understand that even though they're emotionally tied to the home they're selling, the home they're purchasing, that it is a negotiation, and those emotions, we try and diminish that as much as we can.
Yeah.
Because what we're trying to do, and this is our philosophy on our team, we're looking for win-win. We want it to be a situation where, let's say, you as the seller, me as the buyer, when all this is said and done, you've gotten a fair price and a fair deal for your home.
Shake hands.
And we've gotten a fair deal for a home that we love and we want and we're excited about having. When we can accomplish that, then I think we've done our jobs really well.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's our philosophy. Now, there's all different negotiating styles, and we have to remind our clients, even when it seems like, oh, that agent's a jerk, or no, that agent's just fighting for the client.
Yeah, exactly.
So we sometimes have to serve to temper the emotion, and to say, and also to remind them, I'm not in this to make sure that the other client's happy. I'm in this to negotiate the best deal I can for you. But I'm also not in this to screw somebody out of something.
Yeah, exactly.
We really want, and I think there's lots of room for that win-win for everybody. Does it always end up that way? No. Sometimes it doesn't, but we do our best to try and achieve that.
Well, it is generally, at this point in time, it's probably the seller's biggest sale of asset.
It is.
And it's probably the buyer's biggest purchase.
That's
and
right.
so there's a lot of emotions going back and forth because it's dealing with money.
It is.
And so we have to work for each other's clients as the listing agent and the selling agent, but we also have to communicate effectively along the way with everybody: escrow, lender, agents, transaction coordinators, everybody.
Right. Which means we have to spend a lot of time listening, making sure that people are heard, and not just talking and telling them what they need to do, because that's the only way that they can really process through the emotion of all of that and get down to the true essence of what's being asked for, what's being provided, what's being agreed to, those type of things.
Perfect. Yeah. So thank you, Craig, for coming today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So again, our goal as the lender and the agent is to help you find a house and actually get an accepted offer and be completely 100% happy with the transaction.
That's right.
This is Mortgage Wise with Mike Wise at Capstone Direct, and thanks for watching.